Testing, over. This is Stan Tinsley speaking. I'm interviewing Mr. Brice Jordan here at his home in Knoxville. This is the 24th day of October, 1990. I'll start asking Mr. Jordan some questions here in just a minute. Okay, Brice, when did you join the service? Just approximately, son.
I was drafted in January of 1944.
Okay, were you in school time or out working?
I was working at that time. I'd been married 3.5 years.
I see. Where are you from originally?
Royston, Georgia.
Okay. But, and where were you, what town were you in when you were drafted?
I was living in Atlanta.
Were you working for a bank in Atlanta?
Working for the Trust Company of Georgia.
I see. And while you were working for them, you were drafted. Okay, what branch service did you go into?
I was put in the Army.
Okay. How old were you when you went into the service?
I was 30 years old.
Okay. Is anybody else in your family in the service, brothers or sisters or anything?
I had one brother who was 8 years younger than I, and he was killed while in the Navy in 1942.
And what were some of the circumstances of his death?
Well, he was, I say, he followed when he went in, and he was only 20 years old when he was killed.
I see.
He was in a Navy patrol plane, and this happened off the coast of Brazil. They never gave us any details, and we never were able to get any further details of what happened. And that was a devastating circumstance to my family. My mother,
that it was.
When you get a telegram missing in action, and then a couple of weeks later you get a telegram on a Sunday morning that he was killed, that is devastating. And I had made plans to go in the Navy myself. And that happened, and I changed my plans. I just waited my turn to be drafted, and then so that's the reason I was wound up in.
Describe the different places where you had your training. Where you went in and where you what went on here in the United States, in other words, before you went overseas.
Well, living in Atlanta, I reported at Fort McPherson there in Atlanta, and from there they sent me to Fort McClellan, Alabama, at Anniston for my basic training. This was in January of 1944, and I never seen as much rain in all my life as I did down in Alabama at that time. And it was, I was working in a bank, and it looked like most bank employees. I was pale and weak, weighed 130 pounds when I went in service, 5 feet 11 inches tall. So when I came out of service, I'd gotten up to 165 pounds and mainly muscle at that time.
That's the truth.
Well, from the basic training, I reported to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and on about June of that summer, and
okay, let me be sure I got some. You were drafted. Give me the date again.
in January 1944.
For 44. Okay. And then by the time you went to Camp Kilmer, what was it? Was it 19? Still 1944.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Well, I don't remember how long I was there, but they put us on a ship, and before we left, another ship came in and rammed us in the side, put a hole in the side of it, so they had to take us off, and I had about a 10-day delay. And during that 10 days, I ran into a young fellow from my hometown, Royston, Georgia. His last name was Veal. First name was James Veal. He was I don't know what he did, but he had something, he was working in the office there, but he forged a pass so I could get out. So I took that pass and went out to New York City one time. And anyway, after about 10 days, they loaded us again on a ship called the Bergensford. That was a Norwegian ship with a British crew. About 2,000 men on that ship. And went across in a convoy. About 45 ships, and most of them were tankers, with 6 Navy escorts. And this Bergensford, it wasn't designed for a troop carrier, but we ate and slept in the same quarters, and had about 2,000 men jammed into that thing.
Yeah.
And I was sick a good part of the time. 13 days crossing over, by the way.
Couldn't go any faster than the slowest boat.
That's right. And so we landed in. Well, I got the dates of when we left. We left on July 18, 1944, and landed in Glasgow, Scotland on July 30, 1944.
Okay. All right, let's see if there's anything else. This question here, what did you think of the quality of the training you were given while you were in the States?
I thought it was excellent.
Did you?
They emphasized the basic things that I needed, that I found I needed. You know, as far as I'm concerned, when you get out there in battle, it's a self-preservation mainly.
Yeah. Okay, what units were you part of? I guess here in the States, and did you go overseas with?
Well, in the States, it was just a basic training. And sent me. I went overseas as a replacement soldier. And that was, I went to a replacement camp, by the way, at called Camp Stately, near Taunton, England. Taunton. And
were you just supposed to wait there till somebody needed you, or?
I was I say went over as a group as a replacement soldiers. I had no idea where I was going to be. You know, I knew that I was going to be assigned to some outfit. One day they came by and got us all assembled and asked for volunteers for the paratroopers. They got a few volunteers that day. The next day they came back and they said the remaining portion of you are going to the airborne outfit, but Glider Regiment, which you don't have to be a volunteer to be in the gliders. A requirement of the paratroopers is that you volunteer.
I see.
But anyway, they put us in the 17th Airborne Division. They were there at
what I know about gliders and the troops, I believe they ought to put that for volunteers.
But
okay, you went into what did they call it? What division was it?
17th Airborne.
Airborne.
I was in the 193rd Glider Infantry Regiment.
Okay, after you all landed in Scotland, then what happened?
Well, that's where the ship landed in
Mm-hmm.
Glasgow, Scotland.
Yeah.
Well, the very first thing I remember very vividly is the Red Cross was there with coffee and donuts,
Mm-hmm.
which tasted mighty good to me
Yeah.
after being on that ship
I guess.
for 13 days. They put us on a train. That's when they took us down to this Camp Stapley,
Mm-hmm.
which is the replacement depot.
What were things like down there?
That, as I mentioned in a letter that I gave you previously, that was the worst part of my experience in training.
Mm-hmm.
They assumed that we didn't know anything and put us through basic training again. And the weather was horrible. We had no time off, and the food was terrible, and it was just looked like they're trying to make it rough on us so that we'd be glad to get into combat from there. but I think that was part of the mission, is to treat us rough in that camp.
Is that right?
That replacement depot.
Hmm.
And I remember those cold, dreary mornings there in England. Get up before day,
Mm-hmm.
but after I got into the 17th Airborne, things eased off. We had a little time off for recreation,
Right. Were you assigned to the 17th Airborne in England?
yes,
Okay, and then you went on to France with them.
went on across in the Battle of Bulge with them. Yes.
They tell me about crossing the channel and then the Battle of...
Well,
just give me the story of it.
I was. They say they made a new platoon when I was assigned to the 17th Airborne. They called it a defense platoon assigned to the headquarters regiment. This, in the latter part of December, when the Battle of the Bulge was going on, and we were called in the service, most of the division was flown from England over to France.
Mm-hmm.
I went across on a LCT, I guess that's the name of it, a small boat, landing craft, with a kitchen truck. While I was there, I don't remember why I got that detail. Anyway, I went across the channel.
Was it a rough ride?
No, it was a very pleasant ride.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I think, Christmas dinner on the boat, turkey, I remember that. But they didn't waste much time getting us on up to the front. We were up on the front by the 1st of January.
Mm-hmm.
They relieved some other division. I forgot another division. And it was the weather from France into Belgium was considerably different. We had snow on the ground. It was cold, and this was 1st of January, and of course the mission was to get rid of the Germans that were in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't privy to all the things that were going on, but we spent a lot of time marching at night. I don't remember getting much sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I know what a German 88 sounds like. And those things coming at you, you better do something to get out of the way. But on January the 7th, my regiment was put into action on what they call a dead man's ridge. The Germans were up above and we were down below. And going up the ridge, we were sitting ducks almost,
Mhm,
the targets for the Germans, and we lost an awful lot of men that day. I was not in the thick of that action. I was standing guard, and where I was guard, there was a haystack, and 8 Germans had been killed while they were eating their lunch sometime. They still had the mess kits in the hand.
Gosh.
They were killed just sitting around that haystack. And of course they were frozen at that time.
Right.
Looked like mummies sitting there.
They've been killed by ground fire or?
I don't know how they've been killed. But that day was January the 7th of 1945 now. Was the worst day that I've experienced. And even though I was not in that group that was going to up Dead Man's Ridge. That was in Belgium, and then we went on into Luxembourg, and
why do you say that was the worst day that you'd ever spent?
that because of the shells that were falling around me.
I see.
I was not subject to small arms fire. I wasn't that close, but they were shelling me.
Right, I see. Well, it'd be bad enough.
Yeah.
Then you all went, where'd you say, into Luxembourg?
Well, we were in Belgium and Luxembourg, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire time of the bulls took up about 6 weeks.
Were you all airdropped into Belgium?
No, we went in by land.
By land?
Yeah.
Were you airdropped sometime during the Battle of the Bulge?
No, we went in by land, but we got supplies that were dropped in by air.
I see, yeah, okay.
But that mission was a ground mission.
Mm-hmm. What was the one I was seeing where you, on the manifest, that you were one of the 4 on the glider?
After the Battle of the Bulge, we went back into France.
I see.
And this was about around the middle of February. And I was in the 193rd Regiment. They had 194th also, and because of the loss of so many men, they deactivated the 193rd and left only the 194th.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, I was assigned to an anti-tank company.
Mm-hmm.
We had 57mm guns,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a squad with the anti-tank company. And we got training. I never had any training with a gun. I don't suppose I ever seen one, and to know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I got some training with the anti-tank gun. It's pulled by a Jeep, by the way.
Yeah, I was wondering what size gun that was.
It's on wheels. It's a big gun. But
Yeah.
a 57mm shell is quite a large shell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose.
And then this was near Chalon-sur-Marne, by the way, in France. And along about the 20th of March, we moved out to another area near Paris, France, airfield, where they getting ready for an airborne mission. And that's when we had to spend time learning about the mission we was going to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And this was going to be an airborne mission across the Rhine.
Mm-hmm.
And we loaded gliders and whatever had to be done,
Right.
getting ready for the take off on March the 24th. And so we took, that was the airborne mission, the only airborne combat mission I was in.
I see. Did you or your unit, did you all have any contact with the British or the French soldiers? If you did, what did you think of them?
I did not personally have any contact with them. This mission we were on, the British had airborne mission along with us.
Mm-hmm.
They had their own zone, you know,
Right.
and we had ours, but I never had any contact with them.
Mm-hmm. Did your outfit take any prisoners?
We took an awful lot of prisoners. I have no idea how many prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I might mention my experience with prisoners, which was kind of amusing, by the way. This was in Germany. We landed at near Wesel, W-E-S-E-L, Germany, across the Rhine, and moved on up to Munster. I don't know how many miles away it was, but the fighting was going on in Munster, and my company was anti-tank company. The squad I was assigned to, we had one of our guns set up near a road, and we were taking turns on guard duty,
Mm-hmm.
2 at a time. And when me and the other fellow, I can't recall his name right now, we were relieved of our guard duty, we had decided we were going to walk across the field about 200 yards down to a farmhouse. Soldiers are always looking for something to find, eggs, something at an abandoned farmhouse.
Right.
So we hadn't gone very far, and there was a terrorist show, just like we see back here in our country sometime. They'd grown up, and a rabbit jumped up in front, and I took a shot at him with my carbine.
Mm-hmm. And
about that time, I saw these fellows coming out from behind the house, waving white handkerchief. One by one, they just kept coming. So me and my buddy stopped and just motioned for them to come on to us. So it turned out that there were 9 German soldiers.
Oh, sorry.
They were looking to be surrendered, looking to surrender, by the way. So that was my experience of capturing Germans. I mean, they just voluntarily gave themselves up.
Were they ready to quit fighting?
Oh yes, they were really looking for somebody to surrender to, because they were English-speaking boys, young, handsome-looking guys. They were used as interrogators. They used them to interrogate American soldiers.
Yeah, I see.
And they would speak English fluently.
I guess they wanted to get captured by the Americans, not by the Russians.
That's right.
I don't blame
So that was my experience in capturing.
That's it.
But a lot of them were captured, you know, in the first day of that airborne mission.
All right.
Yeah.
Those were pretty high-class fellas then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Did you have any contact with the civilians while you were overseas?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you ever wonder about what you were doing there, and was it worth it, and that sort of thing?
Well, that was a war that I felt that we were justified in being in.
Yeah, I think everybody did.
You know, the Germans had proven that they were strong, and they were getting stronger, and if they wasn't stopped, that they could come on and do more damage.
Right.
Well, I had no problem with that.
What memories do you have of the men that you served with? Did you ever talk to any of them, keep in touch with any of them?
Well, the 17th Airborne Division has a reunion at different places every year. Been doing this for 36 years. I have been to 5 of these annual reunions. Unfortunately, I haven't been in contact with any of the boys that I served with except on two occasions. But I've met other fellows and made a lot of good friends from the association and going there. And me and my wife both enjoy going.
What do you remember most about your time overseas? Is it the day that you were doing guard duty in the shelling, or? This is what do you remember most about your time? So it could be, that, or it could be a lot of other things.
Well, in the routine, it gets so much routine that it doesn't make too much of an impression, I suppose. But I guess what you might say, what bugged me more than anything else is I went through the actually 3 wars in a very short period of time. And when the war was over in Germany, it was still going on with Japan.
Right.
And we were being alerted and talked about going to fight there. And that is the worst thing that I can remember about it. I mean, you feel like you've done your job at one place and they don't send you somewhere else. And we came close to doing it. If it hadn't, thanks to Truman, we
Hadn't been
into that.
we would have.
That's right.
We had a few guys from the 8th Air Force that
They can expect that, but
but not
I wasn't a soldier. So
not civilian soldiers.
but that's the worst. I guess the worst memory I have. Of course, I had some good memories too. But
What did you plan to do after the war was over?
well, my job was open at the bank. Tuscaloosa, Georgia was a big bank, but I was a teller there. I hadn't been in banking long, and I couldn't see a lot of future there, and I had a lot of. Before I was discharged, I was home about a month, and had time to do a little thinking and I had a good friend with the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which is a government agency, and I went to see him. And I'd also gone to see the person manager at the Tuscaloosa, Georgia, and he told me about the salary range that we started back at the same salary, and when I got my feet on the ground, I could talk about a raise. But I went to see my friend at the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, and as a result of that, I went to work for the government.
I see. Okay. Do you have any feelings about the people of draft age that go into service when you did?
Very, very strong about. I wasn't familiar with many of them, but I knew some. And I knew one fellow back at my hometown, the little town of Royston, Georgia, about 1,400 population. I always felt that he was very close to the manager of the draft board. And he got wealthy during the war.
Yeah. I had a friend in Tennessee that managed to stay out, and boy, did he do well. How did the war affect you? And how did it change you?
Well, I had some, I guess my wife could tell that better than I could, but I had some adjusting to do after I got home. See, my life would change considerably. As I mentioned, I had a son that was born while I was over. He was almost a year old when I got back home, and I had time getting adjusted to being a daddy.
Right.
And I was one of those that learned to be a GI. I taught GI language, and that was frustrating to my wife. And but I soon got out of that. It didn't take me long to getting to work was helped me more than anything else along that line.
You think the war changed the country very much?
Well, there she comes.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Nice
Nice to see you, sir.
Nice.
Sit down here a minute. That's he just got to something I want to have a seat there. We were talking about winding up this thing, you know. Well, the question was, we still on tape, aren't we?
Yeah. If you, I'll cut it off if you want me to.
No.
Okay.
I didn't understand whether the tape don't understand what's going on or not. Anyway, Stan had asked me about how the war had affected me. You know, after I got home, and I said, I guess I wish my wife was here, but she could tell that.
Oh, Lord.
He must have been something from what he's saying.
He went to see that war movie. Did he tell you that?
No.
Day before yesterday.
Which was down.
Oh yeah, did you? I want to see that. I haven't seen it yet.
He said it was rough. Said it was just like he did in the trenches, you know. And I said, well, I'm glad I didn't go because you embarrassed me to death. Just be walking down the street and come out with that lingo, you know. It was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
We never did talk. So we weren't brought up to talk, say all the words, the dirty words they said. So I guess they just didn't care. Either that or go crazy.
Well, that's not the way it was in the service. It was just one curse word after another.
But I said if I had a son that I hadn't seen, and asked the gentleman to make that.
Yeah, I almost left him. I thought he didn't want to support us, you know. That went through my mind several times.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure it was a rough adjustment to come back to responsibility and have to change your ways, you know. You get pretty rough.
We was married almost 5 years before
I see.
the son was born.
I see.
And then he was walking and talking when he saw his dad.
He was asking me a question about what I thought about the changes made in the country, you know, I mean, a general question. I wouldn't know how to answer that except that I think the country was everybody pulled together during that war. Everybody thought we had a mission to accomplish, and wasn't many people against it. And now, you know, Vietnam and Korea and what we're into now, that, you know, it's not 100% hit of it. But
You get a lot of answers to that question. How did it change the country? And some for the good and some for the bad.
But the worst thing about war is that the human lives and suffering that has to go along with it, and you know that somebody that was killed in the service, you don't know how many lives that's affected.
Oh yeah.
Well, you lost your brother, sir.
Yes, I told him I lost a brother, and how it affected the family, and my mother and whatnot.
But it was still rough times after the war. You couldn't get building material, and things didn't start going up in salaries and everything else till a number of years after the war.
We had a rough time trying to find a decent living quarters.
Yeah, I went through the same thing. What do you remember most about coming home?
Seeing my wife, baby.
Okay. When were you discharged?
In November 1945. That's another waste of money. And I was drafted to Fort McPherson in Atlanta. My wife's still living there. That's where they gave me a leave at the end of the war. And they sent me over to Fort Jackson, South Carolina to be discharged.
Yeah.
Wake up in the middle of the night with a telephone that extending your leave another 30 days. But they were coming back.